Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Whitney Erwin, and we talk about essential oils, healing through natural remedies, aromatherapy, Yoni steaming, and so much more. Whitney is an international holistic health practitioner, a clinical herbalist, and Ayurvedic strategist. She's been practicing yoga for over 2 decades, and she is the owner of Four Seasons Harmony Holistic Health, Healing, and Ayurveda, which opened in 2015. She has a master's in clinical herbal medicine, a master's in education in Montessori, and she holds a plethora of advanced certificates. She is an absolute wealth of knowledge. Today, we talk about essential oils, aromatherapy, how to blend oils, how to find good quality oils, how they have a synergistic effect, how it's backed by scientific research, how essential oils have an antibacterial property, and how we can use our intuition to discover which essential oils are best for us, and how it is basically a lifelong process of discovering and exploring. We could have talked about this topic in depth for so many hours. There's so much to explore. I loved having Whitney as a guest. I definitely want to have her on a future episode. So I hope you will enjoy this episode as much as I did. And please, if you do, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for listening in and for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Whitney. Good morning and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Hi, good morning. Such a joy to be with you, Nicky.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about our topic today, which is aromatherapy and essential oils. And I feel like super excited about it because I have a plethora of essential oils in my room and I use them, but I feel like I could be doing more and be diving deeper in to the practice of using them and using them in a more meaningful way. So I want to talk a little bit about your background. You have a really extensive background. You have a master's in clinical herbal medicine and one in Montessori. And then you have all these certifications with Ayurveda, and you've been a yoga practitioner for over 2 decades. So for the people that aren't aware, what is a master's in clinical herbal medicine? I actually don't think I've heard of that before.
Yes, so it is a specialized graduate degree in looking at the safe use of recommending herbs for internal medicine for all sorts of health conditions. In my program, it was very diverse with lots of different healthcare practitioners and doctors, and it's the most advanced program in the United States at this time, and really just helped me in my one-on-one work with women and feeling like really confident about recommending herbs and safe therapeutic dosages and helping them to recover and restore their health and vitality.
Yeah, that's amazing. And this is your practice. You have a holistic health clinic and you do healing and Ayurveda. What I know there's more. Tell me what I'm missing.
Yes, that's so much of it. I mean, it's my lifestyle inside and out before I decided to do this professionally. So there's so much there, and I love to learn. So I'm always adding on new things and expanding. It essentially, I work full time in the field of holistic health. I founded Four Seasons Harmony in 2015, which is holistic health, healing, and Ayurveda, especially geared towards supporting women's health. And then I started to specialize in hormonal balance like a year after that, just from the massive amount of caseloads that I was seeing and the needs of so many of my women. And I'm really a believer bringing in anything that's helpful. And I consider myself truly integrative. So I respect all fields of medicine. Everything I do, though, is 100% natural. and doing a lot of things like looking at the root causes of why health imbalances and conditions are happening in the first place. That's very intrinsic to Ayurvedic medicine. So I'm really not about like a short-term symptomatic approach. I'm more so for long-term, deep, sustainable healing and witnessing and supporting that process in the people I have the pleasure of serving.
Yeah, I love that. And so, with the topic of aromatherapy, was that something that they touched in your master's program? Did they go deep into that, or how did you evolve into an interest with that?
Yes, and I feel like this touches so many different aspects of my personal life and professionally with different trainings. So we absolutely did a deep dive in graduate school about what the technical term is volatile oils. And that's like a chemical constituent of many plants, about 10%. And that's commonly talked about as essential oils. I also took a Pharmacy of Flowers aromatherapy course from Master Aromatherapist and Clinical Herbalist David Crow, and looking at how to apply essential oils from a very holistic and ancient lens, and then just my own personal experience of being in nature and smelling plants and interacting with them and working on farms. So kind of bring all of those three approaches into my work.
Hmm. What do you feel are some of the misconceptions that people have around aromatherapy?
Yeah, I think a big one that I see is, although I celebrate that it's popular, I think it's the biggest in for people to respect and safely use botanical medicine. There's a lot of commercialization around that. So I often work with people that are not given any education or even just misinformation on how to safely use their essential oils for home use. And then they can actually hurt themselves, especially through taking them internally.
Mm,
So just, I think it's very easy to safely use them at home, but so many people, again, don't have that education or awareness, or they're being pushed by different marketing approaches that aren't really founded in health. And I just see a huge need for people to avoid that and really know how to best take care of themselves and their families.
yeah. And what I've noticed that as I've been exploring this for myself is that I kind of started out getting oils from Target, and now I'm using doTERRA, and I feel like there's a whole vast array of quality of essential oils. And so, how do people know what they're getting and if it's a good quality? Because I think that's super important.
Yes, it's extremely important. It's everything. And so a rancid oil, a rancid plant will never work. The medicinal value is really absent. There's also a lot of adulteration. So if you don't know where the sourcing is coming from, it could just be a synthetic plant that's made and it's sold as a pure essential oil. And so I think really knowing where your essential oils are coming from, and trust is everything. So I find quality standards like sustainably sourced, either certified organic or wildcrafted, fair trade. For me, that's where I like to source my essential oils. So I feel like nobody's harmed in the process and they're so much higher quality as well. They'll last longer and work better.
Do you have 3 or 4 brands that you could recommend for people?
Yeah, so well, my favorite is Floricopia for like 20 years. That is David Crow's company. And they stopped doing retail a couple of years ago, and they've been rolling over to Anima Mundi Herbals. So that for me is like my top recommendation, because I know where the distillers are located around the world. I know their quality standard, and they're based in Brooklyn, New York, and they also have, let's see, a sister company now in California. Mountain Rose Herbs is also a fantastic company. So they do a lot of other things in addition to essential oils like Anima Mundi Herbals. And yeah, their quality standard is just so terrifically high. And yeah, those are the two biggies. Honestly, I'm super picky. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a lot to kind of pass my standards, but once you do, then I'll recommend them to everybody.
Yeah. And what do you think about Young Living and doTERRA?
Ooh, so I think that there's room to grow for people to understand how to safely recommend the internal use of essential oils. And if you don't have a lot of medical training, there's a very high risk at taking them within your body. And I haven't seen that always be as transparent. I have a certification in, let's see, raindrop therapy, which is, it traces its roots back to a very old time-honored Lakota tradition. And that's something that Young Living has kind of coined today. And I think that uh, there's a lot of incredible beauty and benefits for those oils, and sometimes too much of a marketing approach for me. Yeah, here I am on record saying that. I never said I would. But I think that if you care about health and safety first, it really shows in all aspects of your company.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have always, not always, but mostly used essential oils for external use, either mixing it with a carrier oil or putting it in a diffuser. And I haven't done that much with an internal practice. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, essentially, that's the one thing you want to avoid most of the time for home use, like unless you're working with a trained practitioner. So,
Hmm.
yeah, topical application is the safest and easiest way to start reaping the benefits of aromatherapy. And if you're doing, like what you said, mixing it into a carrier oil, diluting the essential oils down, then it's just so safe to apply like anywhere on your body.
Right.
Diffusers are extremely safe as well. And I think there's so much research that they do that I have a lot of respect for. That's incredible. Um, and I personally know people that have been recommended to have like lemon oil that you take internally, like in a glass of water, or take peppermint oil if you have a stomach complaint. So that's more what I'm talking about. So you would
Yeah.
actually like drink it and take it inside of you. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and essential oils are used in lots of different food based products. And you can do it internally for sure. You just really need to know what you're doing. So it's just not something you want to take advice from somebody from like a weekend training. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and the safest way to do that is just to do it in the whole plant form. You know, about 10% of plants produce essential oils naturally, and it's always for the immunological functioning. So you can very easily just take like the whole oregano herb, whole marjoram, whole peppermint, and blend that into your foods or take it as a tea. And you're going to be getting those properties naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about I've heard that there's certain things that aren't safe to diffuse around pets.
Yes, I've heard of that. I'm not really convinced that that's plausible. So with diffusing, at least, it's very safe to have that aromating out into the environment. So for everybody, humans and animals included, we're all going to have scents that we don't like. And, I have done a lot of aromatherapy and body work. So in my professional treatments, and I did that for 6 years. And that was part of what I did with Ayurveda and herbal medicine consulting as my full-time job, for a long time. And so I would have, dozens and dozens of essential oils out. I would include it into every treatment, and I would let people choose what they liked. And what I found was that everybody had different preferences with scents. And some people love citrus and some people hated it. Some people love lavender and some people did. And so I didn't really think that it was a negative thing that some scents don't work for everybody. It's just a matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
And so my intuition on that is more so like, finding out what your pets really love. And they might have an aversion to certain scents just like humans do. Doesn't mean that it's dangerous per se.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they say that like cats hate citrus, and I used to have a cat, and every time I would open an orange, she would run from anywhere in the entire house. She could smell it, and she would jump all over me, and she wanted to lick the citrus. So it does change. Like it's not across the board.
So yes, yeah, and usually the
Yeah.
dogs in my life usually will eat anything and everything. And so yeah, having the favorites I would look for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about diffusing. Say we're going to diffuse a lavender oil and we want to create a relaxation before bed. Do we diffuse it for a certain amount of time? Do you sporadically diffuse it? Do you let it go on a slow diffuse for 12 hours? Is there some kind of thought around that?
Yeah, I love all of those options. Yeah, some of that I believe is just personal preference. Some of it depends, like, what's the intention that you're
Mhm.
going for, and what is your current mood and state at that time. So if you're like, I had a super stressed out day, I'm feeling really frazzled, and I think it might be really hard to fall asleep at night. That's probably not going to be like a 5 or 10 minute type of the therapy. Like, you probably want to go deeper and longer because it's going to take more time for you to feel maximum benefit. If you're like, oh, I just really want to freshen up and feel like I'm going to bed with all these amazing smells around me and I'm going to choose my favorites, that will work instantaneously. Uh, now, if you're going for more like purification of the air, and this is what I usually recommend in the winter months, like killing airborne pathogens and, one factor to trying to minimize the onset of having contagious diseases like colds and flus, then I'd recommend something like a 12-hour, diffusing, where it would be there for many, many hours working to purify your environment constantly. Um, let's see, I would also add that it depends on, the concentration of, okay, how much are you doing at once? The forest bathing research, I just absolutely love. And I think a lot of that's intuitive if you're a nature lover, but if you spend 2 hours out in the forest, then there is a significant shift, boosting your immune system. And so, that could be a nice framework as well. If you really want, like, a deep switch, then have it, going for at least 2 hours.
Yeah. So there's really no harm in letting it run for using it every day, running for hours, like being in a diffused environment.
No, I haven't seen any. And the only complaints that I've received are like smells that people know they have an aversion to already.
Yeah.
And then, okay, if that's for a longer period of time, it's usually just going to escalate and get worse and worse. I think with any environment, you want to have some natural uh, filtration going on. Open up the windows. You don't want it to get too stuffy.
Yeah.
It's usually the way that diffusers run. It's such a gentle and kind of like low dose framework that we're looking for from the beginning. So you're not really talking about something that has a very high risk, right? It's just so gentle and safe. And yeah, I like the intermittent, like throughout the day. Like if I'm working, and again, it depends on what I'm going for. So if I'm like, okay, I need to be on, I need to be focusing on a project, I might with something that's a little bit more energizing, or like the citral oils would be great, just to brighten my mood. Or I really like some of the forest oils, like silver fir is really good for enhancing mental clarity. So I'm like, okay, if I have some brain fog, like that's when I want diffusing on and off. Then I want that for a long period of time, because I may be working for a long stretch. And then I might just let it go if I'm moving around in the household. So it depends. You're in a house, you're in a tiny apartment. So much is just logical. Like you would only need a smaller diffuser if you're in a smaller space. If it's
Yeah.
a larger space, you'd want a larger diffuser.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about different points to place the oils because I've heard that the bottom of the feet is really effective. And so, what are some, like, if we're going to get the maximum benefit from placement of an oil that's mixed with a carrier, where on our body would we place it?
Yeah, well, I teach Abhyanga a lot, this Ayurvedic practice of self massage. So I'll say any point in the body for sure. And kidney one point on the soles of the feet is definitely incredible, to apply a mixture of aromatherapy on your body anytime. I usually recommend that before going to bed. So, like, there's thousands of nerve endings on your feet, and anything that you're doing to rub the soles of your feet is very grounding, restorative for your nervous system. And then that specific kidney one point, kind of right in the middle, is considered to be the most grounding point on the body. So, yes, that's a beautiful one. Um, and another one, the third eye point, is one that I'll
Mm,
recommend a lot for
yeah.
aromatherapy. And um, Yeah, I know you mentioned like a yogic background. That's something I think is applicable for anybody, and for women to just be in touch with their intuition. And if you feel like, okay, I need some more connection to my inner intuition and higher chakras, altered states, that would be such a beautiful point to activate.
Yeah. I think it was oregano oil that I didn't like the scent at all.
Really,
But I wanted the benefits of it. And so I did. I put it on the bottom of my feet and then put socks on so I didn't have to deal with like the scent.
there you go, that'll work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that could work for people. Yeah. And so there's also essential oils like citrus and other essential oils where you're not supposed to mix it with going out into the sun. Is that correct? Or do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. So I would say it's the citrus oils that you have to be careful of because there is phototoxicity, and that can increase UV rays and how those are going to be interacting with your body for up to 12 hours. Uh, so I'll apply citrus oils to my body like at night. And then I'm like, okay, I'm sleeping on that. I'm fine the next morning. Unfortunately, I see a ton of skincare companies, even if they're holistic, and I'm the person I'm like read all the ingredients because I do a lot of referrals, and I see citrus oils blended in a lot of them. So you do have to be careful with that one. You're just making sure you're not applying it like on your daily cleanser or moisturizer right before you're going out into the sun. Um, but if that's avoided, you're totally fine. And again, later in the day or in the winter months, I think you're fine.
Yeah. So let's dive into like a little bit of the fun pieces. Maybe I'll just toss out a mood that we're trying to gather or something, and then you can maybe share some of the oils that go along with it. So if we're wanting to ground, if we're feeling like we have monkey mind and we can't focus and we can't concentrate, what are some good grounding oils?
Yes. So anything that has like an earthy scent to it as a whole is going to be very grounding. And we could say in Ayurvedic terms, anything that's vata balancing. So jadamansi, sandalwood, vetiver, amazing. Yeah. For just bringing you down a notch, calming. Um, I mean, lavender is like the most popular essential oil on the planet. It's definitely very calming and relaxing. One thing to point out, like just by smelling anything, a plant or an oil, is going through your cranial nerve, your olfactory nerve to your brain. So it immediately works. You're smelling things is going through your sinus capillaries, all these olfactory nerves. So like the switch is instantaneous.
Mm,
So just smelling something alone, you're going to have that aromatherapy benefit. And then you can layer, right? You just like mix it and then apply it on your body, have it something you're smelling for hours. So uh, yeah, so there's so much to it. I'm still so in love, like 20 years
mm,
later.
yeah. All right. Say we're super sleepy and we want to wake up and get energized. What are some good ones for that?
Yes, the citrus oils for sure. So you don't have to apply it to your skin or your face, like, but just smelling it or diffusing it. Bergamot, lemon, grapefruit, orange. Um, I've also seen, some of the spice oils. They're more
Hmm.
warming. They can be just kind of like stimulating, like clove. You said you don't like oregano, you could do something else like marjoram.
Hmm.
And is having that around you, it should really lift your spirits.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that citrus energizes, but it can also help with sleep. Is that right?
Yeah, and that would be more of like a tonifying action. Uh,
Okay.
Rose geranium, I think, is a wonderful example. I recommend
Mm,
that a lot for hormonal balance to women. And so, like, if you're too up, if you're feeling like anxious or overwhelmed, ungrounded, it'll take you down. But if you're feeling a bit lower too, if like kind of depressed or melancholy, don't want to get out of bed, it'll bring you up. So yes, it can have a dual action. It doesn't always have to just be one side.
hmm hmm And so, what are some of the other calming ones besides lavender?
Oh, chamomile is
Oh,
a good
yeah.
one. And yeah, I do a lot of work with like pregnant women, and that's a very protective time. We want to have like the utmost safety for mama and baby. But I teach lots of aromatherapy and herbs during that time. So I'm just saying it's that safe and amazing. Um, let's see, I mentioned geranium. I would Also add in, vetiver. So just that
Mhm.
like grounding, like
Yeah.
relaxing effect.
What about lang lang?
Yes, I love, yeah, that's like very floral and sensual. Uh, I find that a little brightening myself, but it helps me focus. Like I like that when I'm working. And other people find it to be more relaxing.
Mhm. So, what's the benefit of taking a pure essential oil such as lavender or doing something where you're mixing it with another oil? What's the benefit of that?
Yeah. So when you were working with essential oils, they're already very concentrated. So if you could give like a scale in the realm of like botanical medicine, like 10 being ultra concentrated and then 0 being none, essential oils are here. So we just kind of need to know what we're working with. And then
Hmm.
like flower essences would be on the other end, just like super gentle, no contraindications. And so a little goes a really long way.
Hmm.
Purportedly one drop, single drop of rose essential oil is the equivalent to 67 roses.
Oh,
So oftentimes you're just going to notice like it's more potent, right? You're going to feel the effects of like, essential oils like, wow, like, whew, when you smell a bottle, it's just a very, very overpowering. And so we want to work with the medicine in ways that work best for you. And if that's what you need, then keep it at a higher concentration. Now, you can dilute it as much as you need to still be extremely beneficial. So mixing it into carrier oil offers a lot of safety for sure. And, a couple of drops to a tablespoon of a carrier oil is like a nice general recommendation, and like things for like palm inhalation. And also, you could go higher if you'd like, if you want it more potent, or if you're like, oh, I kind of just want like a subtle aromatherapy effect, then you could do like a weaker dilution.
hmm. But when would you blend multiple scents together?
Mm.
So instead of
Anytime.
just using lavender, you would use lavender and lang lang. I don't know. Like when would you mix some of them together? Like is there benefit to mixing?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And so, I mean, there's like top, middle, and low notes to essential oils. That's kind of like a general classification. And then again, so much is personal preference. I mean, I love to mix things together. And like a favorite relaxation blend mixes lavender rhododendron. There's a female balancing blend that I recommend often, and has like clary sage and jasmine, lavender, I think some rose geranium. So whenever I look at blending of plants, I find that there's a synergistic effect. And I don't know if we can actually quantify that. Right? And so, beyond just the single benefits of one plant, you're bringing in the benefits of other plants at the same time. So,
Hmm.
um, that can save time and energy. And you're like, okay, I don't just get lavender, I get lavender and rhododendron at the same time. Um, and also, there's something that happens like those, like it's like the some of the parts is greater than the whole, right? Right. So, or it's like, maybe I got that wrong. But when you combine them together, you're going to have a different chemical combination, but you're also going to have something else that's beyond just these single plants. Right. So when
Yeah.
I smell blends, and maybe you had this experience too, because you're really into aromatherapy, I'm like, whoa, that was not lavender anymore. That took me
Yeah.
somewhere else. Um, and it's really endless. I think so many of my women like fall in love with aromatherapy because it's so creative. And then you're starting to like, okay, well, I could do 1 to 5 lavender to rhododendron, or
Hmm.
I could do 1 to 1, 1 to 10. There's just so many possibilities then once you start looking at mixing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love for you to share a little bit about the science behind aromatherapy for people who think that there's no value or they don't believe in it. What do you have to say about that?
Yes. Well, I think so much is direct experience as well. There's nothing like what you read on paper versus the experience yourself. And I think it's just something that's saturated now with more research. And so if you were to look around, jump on PubMed, you're going to find tons of research studies on essential oils. And so if you're kind of skeptical or not sure if it's out there, just do a little digging. You will find it. And if you're just looking from a purely scientific lens, is like, okay, is there evidence-based research here? Are there double-blind randomized studies that are showing that it does improve your health and well-being? right? It's
Yeah.
not just more so like a placebo effect. I mentioned the olfactory nerve like earlier. I think that's a great case in point. So if you're looking at any scent, not just something from a plant, and how that interacts physiologically in the body,
Mm-hmm.
it absolutely does. And we know that that makes a neurological shift. Now it can go the other way. I'm talking about the therapeutic purposes of aromatherapy and
Mm-hmm.
scents, but if you could also think of the opposite, like a yucky smell or something like, okay, does that have zero impact on people's physiology? I think not. Right? I think it's very logical. And then we can look further as far as like what's happening within, the olfactory nerve that's communicating to the brain. So, yeah, that would be some of my comments on that.
Yeah. Okay, what do you think about because I'm one of those people, I have a lot of different scents and I just kind of play with them, and sometimes I'm called to different ones. But what do you think about the concept of smelling them all and just kind of going with your intuition of what feels right in that moment versus really planning out like this is where I am now and this is where I want to be, or I need to find energy or relaxation? What are your ideas around that?
Yes. Well, I love both. And I guess, so how I work with a lot of my women, I want all of them to develop their intuition more,
Hmm.
you know, you just hands down. And so any way that is deepening for you is a beautiful practice. And I think we can kind of turn off sometimes like the logical analytical side, which we sometimes need and live into so much throughout the day, like tap into that intuitive, creative, non-logical place. Then you're going to develop an intelligence and a sensitivity, just doing that repeatedly over time and blending that in with aromatherapy. I think you get to know yourself really well, and you also start to notice shifts. So if you were to do that as a consistent practice, you probably like, well, I might not want the exact same oil every single day. And
Mm,
why is that? Oh, maybe I'm changing a lot, or this time in my life I'm gravitating toward this oil. And then you might study it further, learn more about the benefits, and then maybe it shifts to something else. And you'll see how holistic that is and how it's relating to so much more in your life. um, and then I think there's also suggestions that can be helpful as new practices as well. And like I have different aromatherapy lists that I've compiled based on your dosha type in Ayurveda, and
mm,
is as extensive as I could find. And so, okay, if you're, Vata Pitta, for your Prakriti, what are the best essential oils for you to restore and nourish doshic balance over time, like to feel your best self? So I also share those with a lot of my women where it's like, okay, kind of like for life, if we're looking at major patterns and tendencies where you might go more out of balance than other people, constitutional types. These might be your best friends in the aromatherapy
mm-hmm.
world. Maybe stock up on those as your go-tos, even if you're not sure you need it. It probably should work for you based on this ancient science.
Yeah. So can there be a negative consequence to picking the wrong oil? So say I want to uh, be really energetic and then I take vetiver, which is grounding.
Mhm.
Can there be some that are just not right for us in that moment or at all?
Yes, I think so. And uh, yeah, it's a constant art, I would say, as far as kind of recognizing and to the extent that we can do that within ourselves, or do we need outside support, right? Kind
Mm,
of mirroring that back. And so sometimes I think we can get attached to certain states that are unhealthy.
mm,
Whereas sometimes I like, okay, like I'm just going to live in the wound because it's easier. I don't have to deal with the pain, right? And then we're finding all sorts of different excuses, right, to just stay there. And yeah, that is very different than like, wow, I don't feel really know well. I'm going to do something as soon as possible to help shift the state of consciousness so I'm feeling better and like my best self. Okay, and then I'm reaching for something that's like of an opposite energetics to help me there, right? And okay, that would be very beautiful and harmonizing. But if I like, oh, I'm doing something that's going to kind of keep me down, um, then that might tell me more about where I am at that time in my life, right? And maybe needing some external support, because it's too hard to know like what I need to live in balance.
yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. So what's the difference between essential oils and I'm not even sure I'm saying this right, but like floral essences or floral water.
Yes, yeah, and, flower essences is, like, one term. I've heard, yeah, floral elixirs, the floral preparations. I think that's intrinsic into all traditional cultures
Mm-hmm.
and how th practice botanical medicine. So, um, those are bioenergetic preparations that are looking at the bioelectrical field of flowers and distilling that, kind of like tincturing into a menstruum. So water is a very common one. And you'll see different blends with alcohol, like 25% or more will guarantee an indefinite shelf life. Or you see vinegar. So something that's like a natural preservative. So that will stay as a potent medicine for like, several years. And mixing that all together. And then you're taking, oh gosh, there's lots of different ways you can take it, but usually like low dosing, like 2, 4 drops, like several times a day for a long period of time. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
very general recommendation. Um, so it doesn't have any of those essential volatile oils directly mixed in when you're taking that internally. The properties of the plant are been kind of like coated into these different menstruums, and then you're taking that. So yeah, it's just working with different chemistry, different ways of preparing plant medicine.
Mm-hmm. And is that as effective, or is it just a completely different process?
Yeah, it's completely different. And I mean, there's the aromatherapy of flowers. It's extremely powerful. I mean, just smelling a rose plant.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all acknowledge how healing and profound that is. And then there are different tastes from flower essences. And so you're seeing a lot of variants for sure. Like even if all of the other ingredients like that are mixed in are the same, because every flora is going to have a little bit of a different essence into it. It's going to taste a little bit different. It's on like a homeopathic level. Those are different forms of medicine, but I think more closely related, kind of thinking of like that's kind of what we're going for, just a little bit of something for a healing benefit. And are just so gentle in how
Yeah.
they're prepared. I mean, I recommend things like rescue remedy often, and if you were to take like a full dropper at once, that's going to act immediately on your physical body. It could be like 30, 40 drops at once. So if you're having like a full-on panic attack or feeling really disoriented, that would be a fantastic choice to do, and still extremely safe, but it's just higher dosing and concentration. And then for other things, most of the time, just like low dosing over time, to look at shifting psychospiritual states, repairing fuses in your central nervous system. So yeah, I love it all, just different.
Yeah. This about a week ago, I went to a women's retreat and somebody created herbal tea baths. And we were doing a ceremony, and so we all did this herbal tea bath beforehand. So some people, um, mostly like you would go in the shower, get clean, and then she had this tea bath, and we would pour it over our crown and let it come down our body, and then allow it to dry as naturally as we could on our body. And while I was in the shower, I was drinking some of it and pouring some of it over me. And that was the first time I'd experienced something like that. And that was really beautiful. So are you able to speak a little bit about that process?
That sounds so beautiful. So I was like, I'm gonna do that. And,
I'm going to do that tonight.
yes, for sure. Um, this is the thing about herbs, like for me at least, like it's endlessly fascinating. It never gets old. I mean, I love what I do, and there's just so much in a really good way. So another way that you can apply aromatherapy is mixing it into water. So for
Mhm.
bathing, since time immemorial, we've been doing that as humans, and from so many different cultures and lineages. And one thing that I will do routinely in my practice. Well, two different things with aromatherapy and bathing. Like, it recommends sitz baths, So that's a very common postpartum recommendation, like
Mhm.
right after giving birth, like for the first 7 days. And such a beautiful thing to give to other people, like, right, friends and family members, because the woman ideally should be resting a lot. But that helps dramatically to repair and restore her tissues in her pelvic floor. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, like chamomile, chamomile, rose, very healing, vulnerary, astringent herbs. And then I also do like a full on herbal bath and a postpartum ceremony called Closing of the Bones, La Cerrada. And that I do after a deep, like, postpartum abhyanga, usually for the specialized time after giving birth. And I'm letting her choose aromatherapy. So I'm mixing essential oils into her massage oils all over her body. I make a special customized herbal tea blend. And then I get her into an herbal bath. And it had this like steam, and I make like a blend of different, florals and plants. And then it's just aromating out into the bath water she's soaking.
Yeah.
And that's also a great way for children to receive botanical medicine, especially if they can't ingest things. I'll just like make an herbal bath for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and then, pouring it on her. I think there's something about the crown, in Sahasrara area, uh, where, I see like Shirodar is a very popular Ayurvedic practice, like with the warm oils. And so, yeah, you can mix in different plants and herbs and just like really amp it up.
Yeah. Okay, this might be a little bit off track, but I'm wondering about Yoni steaming
Okay.
because I'd never heard about it until this past year. Now it keeps coming up over and over again about the benefits of it. And there's my people in my friendship groups are practicing it. And so I'm wondering if you could share about that.
Yes. Yeah, I learned about it in an Ayurvedic postpartum like certification training, and still connected with this beautiful group of sisters all around the world, mostly in Australia. And so many people talk about yoni steaming. So it's come up a lot. And I mean, there's various opinions about that, just like so many things. I love it. I think it's a wonderful practice. So again, I've mostly heard of it through the lens of postpartum care.
Hmm.
But I actually been working with somebody clinically recently with hemorrhoids, and when we started working together, it's very severe. And I've seen tons of hemorrhoid cases. That's very common with like pregnancy and postpartum, but it was just so severe at the beginning. And I was like, how can we hit this really hard? And brought in yoni steaming, and it's been working really well, like in combination with other internal things and witch hazel.
Mm. Is there a certain like, well, you're saying you use it mostly with postpartum and pregnancy.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if somebody does that as a practice, if there's a certain time of the month that's best to do it.
Well, I think that for women, we're very cyclical.
Yeah.
And I like to affectionately call like our menstrual cycle the moon cycle. For me, that
Yeah.
just feels so much more like accurate.
Hmm.
And so, our hormones change every 2.5 days. Women identifying, we could say. And uh, that's just how we're wired. I do a lot of education around that because I used to struggle with like, okay, there's something wrong that I'm changing so much throughout the month. And so I think that's just kind of how we're wired. And so naturally we'll have different needs, throughout the month. And then there's, heavy hitter times like ovulation, like on a classic 28-day cycle.
Hmm.
Maybe classic, I should say, so many women do not have a 28-day cycle. It's very normal, but
Yeah.
that's talked about a lot in relation to the moon cycle. So around day 14, the middle of your cycle, that can be a really beautiful and auspicious time to bring extra support. Um, I mean, it can work both ways. It can be something you feel a lot of benefits around. Your energetics are shifting, hormones are changing dramatically. And if you need more support, if that's not a comfortable time for you, then we want to bring in more balance for you so you get there. And then, of course, PMS, I think, is huge for women, like, and leading up to your first day of bleeding. So I guess one thing I could definitely say, if you're bleeding, like the heavy days, you want it to be a more gentle, restorative time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like calming, nourishing things, and just, yeah, bringing in more support whenever you feel like you need it.
Yeah. What would be a reason that somebody would want to do a yoni steam? What are the benefits?
Yes, I think so. Healing, like the vaginal reproductive area, and Gosh, yeah, I've heard some people say maybe not when there's as much blood, and other people don't mind doing it at the same time. So sometimes waiting a few days can be helpful, like after childbirth. Um, and again, there's lots of perspectives on this. So if you feel like there's been damage, like so there's been tearing, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and that's really helpful. So you have this really warm, nourishing steam that is blended with different plants. And kind of like a facial steam practice if you've ever tried those, but you're just targeting a specific area of the body. Yeah. And so um, that's usually the energetics that we want for a woman after giving birth. That is okay, warm, moist, oily, nourishing, those kind of things, and then mixed in with these botanicals to literally heal, that pelvic and vaginal area. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, some of that just depends, right, on her birth experience, how she's feeling, how it's going. But also for that astringent action, similar to like the sitz bath benefits. So
Yeah.
we want to shrink those tissues back. I mean, like just expanding during childbirth. It's enormous, the impact on the woman's body. And in Ayurveda, there's such a huge emphasis on postpartum care. And so just really loading it on for the woman so she doesn't stay in that depleted state of like losing so much blood and fluids. And then like, her abdominal muscles and so many things that have stretched. Hopefully it was a positive childbirth experience, but if it wasn't, you might need more support. You might want to do yoni steaming more often until you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're reconnected to that area. I would also
Yeah.
have the spiritual benefits too. I mean, just that alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you're feeling more connection to yourself, if there's any disconnection there, that alone is very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you do it? Do you find the specific herbs that are calling to you that you want to work with and then put them in a container with boiling water and then kind of this is how I'm picturing it in my head, and then kind of being in a skirt or wrapping towels around your body to keep that heat in? Like what does this look like?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen little machines for that and
Okay.
things. I think it's really easy though to just create something on your own, like just like boil some water in a pot, and you're gonna have a steam that naturally comes out. And so you want to direct that to area of your body you're targeting, and again, so that could be a bigger pot or a smaller pot depending on your
Hmm.
comfort level. It depends on your constitutional type. From what I've usually done, just a few minutes can be very beneficial. You can think like 5, 7 minutes, reevaluate, see how you're doing. The biggest thing is not letting it get too hot. So you can just put it lower from your body if the steam is too
Yeah.
intense, or if it's not hot enough, bring it closer. Of course, after time goes on, it's going to, start to cool off. And then you might be able to hold it, for longer periods of time.
Yeah. And then I'm almost picturing getting that container when the process is over and then offering the herbs and the water to the earth.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
people that prepare flower essences and different preparations oftentimes will make an offering to the earth first.
Mm.
It's from a very universal practice. It's a practice of gratitude and yeah, just that sacred womb area. I mean, that's a huge topic, but anything related to that and motherhood, I think is so so sacred. So yeah, just having that be of that spiritual lens and respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this conversation. I feel like I could talk to you about a million different topics and we could just go on for hours. I think I would love to have you back about the one of the many million other topics that you could talk about. It's been so great. Is there anything that we feel like you feel like we're missing around this topic that would be important for the listeners to know about?
Hmm. Let's see. I guess I would add that essential oils are all by nature, just based on their basic chemical constitution, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and antimicrobial.
Mm,
So you're always going to get those benefits with any essential oil. Again, and then you can layer on things like, okay, what kind of mood am I looking for? Do I want to recall something later and have rosemary around? Do I want to take it down a notch after a busy day, have something calming? So um, just know it'll always help your immune system,
mhm,
and it will also just transcend maybe things you didn't really realize that you need it as well. At least it has for me and so many of the people that I work with. So it's such a huge subject. Like, I mean, we were just like touching the tip of the iceberg, and you could study one plant for the rest of your life and be blown away.
Mm.
Just there's so much to unpack. So it's like, don't feel overwhelmed at all, right? Like just like relax into the process. Just take what you need when you need it. And if you're interested, there's so much more to explore.
Yeah. And so, Whitney, what are some of the things that you offer and how can people reach you? And I'll definitely put all your links in the show notes as well.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. So I work with women that struggle with chronic hormonal imbalances and like helping them to uh, build and restore vitality, live a long, healthy life, and you feel more like themselves. So that's all stages of life, from puberty all the way through menopause. So if you need any support, I got you. And I also have so many community things available as well. So if you just want to like receive like free resources, you can get on my email list, you can explore my website, come to our workshop. So I really like to be available to serve you and let me know what you may need.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Whitney. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I loved having you, and I love all of your vast amount of knowledge on so many different topics. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy. I felt so comfortable and relaxed, and I appreciate you offering this space.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.